Thank you, David. Just before really I start on that, looking at how we've got into this position, it's the front loading is a big issue for us. It's a big issue to have all this money cut from us over 4 years. We're working in 3 years here, 55 million. But to actually have to deal in the first year with 31 million is a huge problem for us. I have, and others have, right across the nation, been trying to persuade, or have been trying to persuade, it's too late now, the Treasury through the DCLG to change that or to make it easier for us to deal with it. We're not allowed to bridge our money across the board. That would require national legislation to change, so I'm afraid we are where we are. But the effort has been made, and I personally believe that it became a done deal after DCLG set out their wares with the Treasury. I do believe they tried to get a little bit back to ease the front loading, but when you give the money to the Treasury, they don't tend to give it back. So that is a particular issue for us. And the task we have to do, of course, as a county council, is to keep running our organisation to the best effect of all the people we're supposed to deal with across the board under fairly difficult conditions. You will have seen the frontline services on the previous pie chart, and we can't avoid hitting frontline services to some degree. We've looked at it, we've had to work very fast, but that's where we are. So our task as far as this group are concerned, really, within that big society, which I'm not sure it's a dirty phrase or not these days, but as long as somebody understands more or less what we're talking about, is trying to deal with our wider community and help with tasks further down the line at whatever level that happens to be. So how are we going to be able to secure, protect and promote the voluntary sector? And of course, how to make what resources we do have for that area and others, but for that area we're talking about, have most effect, and that's important. We have to look very carefully at how we've done it in the past and see if we can't sort of make it more effective in the future, because as we know, money is even scarcer than ever was, and Dorset County Council, as you know, has been a low-funded council in the past and has done a certain amount of well, salami slicing, I suppose, in the past to try and sort of maintain its services and to save money. Salami slicing is not an opportunity anymore. It would be wrong to do that. You can say, and I do say, that any forced change is an opportunity, but it's a pretty dire opportunity. You wouldn't have chosen to do this. None of us would want to be here. It's where we are, and we have to make use of that opportunity to try and evolve a future vision for Dorset, and that, of course, includes the voluntary sector, which is hugely important to us. So some examples on this, children's services, 10% reduction overall in the budget, but 5.7, just over half reduction in the voluntary sector, the money is actually going out. Now, that any reduction clearly is regrettable, but it gives you an idea of how we're trying to slice the cake. We'll move on. Another very sort of clear example, and quite an extreme one, I suppose, but it's a small area of budget. You've seen that in the graphs earlier on, as the Chief Executive's office budget, which has been reduced by 35%, almost entirely what some people would call back office. Back office is a term which, to me, is relatively irritating, because it would indicate there are a lot of people sitting in the back office always asked to cut it with their feet up on a chair, doing something with their nails. That's not true at all. We've been trying to become more efficient over years, but what we're really talking about is not the front line, and in this case, not the front line as far as the voluntary sector is concerned. So £600,000 in Chief Executives is protected. Adult services, a big area in adult services for that, and it doesn't appear on here, but I just want to bring out one area. Grants to voluntary organisations, which was at £51,000, not a huge amount of money, is still at £51,000. It's not going up for inflation, but it is actually staying, so there's no reduction in that. Could you move forward? Central voluntary sector support. So we have a list really here. Dorset Association of Parish and Town Councils, we all know, who organise our parish and towns across the way, what they're getting. Systems of Advice Bureau, hugely important to us all, and needed more and more, it has to be said, particularly in difficult circumstances. Special project support, that's something we've always done. It actually brings in, it comes to the Chief Executive's office, it brings in a large amount of money for very little expenditure. If judgment is used right, that's something that we've had for a while and is hugely useful for Dorset. Support services for voluntary organisations is at £161,000, and Community Grant Fund, which is putting a large amount of money in an area to actually support the community in various different ways. Different way of doing it, centralising a lot of money so that we can make the judgments about how best that money can be spent. Existing engagement with volunteers. Now everyone would have heard of POPs, I should imagine, in this room. That has been particularly successful and has had the Dorset POPs has gained national acclaim. And that's really not so much to do with us, but to do with the volunteers that work with it. It's been terrifically successful. That has £800,000 money, which is being maintained. And just a slight diversion here, we've been working with NHS Dorset County Council, what used to be PCT, for a while now in a joint commissioning board, and I think it's testament to the fact that we've been doing that across the board, that we do work together, we do talk to each other, we are sharing things, and here we're sharing the cost of £800,000. I think that's quite right. The area is of extreme importance, and it's an importance to both of those organisations, so I think that is good, and it's been extremely successful. Friends of Libraries, a bit topical, but actually Friends of Libraries have been going some time now and becoming more and more important. Some of us down a well-worn path. Footpath wardens, etc., areas in the environment, they've been going for a while. School governors, forever I guess, and not many people in this room probably haven't been a school governor at some time, and possibly many of you are at the moment. And general school support, we know that schools, in spite of the difficulties of inspection, which hopefully are being eased now, do rely on parents to help the youngsters, whether they're going out or whether they're reading or what have you, and that clearly is something that happens now and will continue to happen. So, for the area, really, future possibilities. We've all seen the library issue, and we no doubt we'll see more of it. It's been in the headlines before. Dorset County Council's approach to this and the circumstances that we find ourselves in, and we've marched down some of this line before, but we need to march down further with it, is to, in the area where the small libraries have a question mark over their future, bearing in mind £800,000 has to come out of the library service somehow. We've taken a similar amount of money out of it before, the way we dealt with that before, even though we did encourage local communities to take over their libraries, and some of them went a long way down that, reducing volunteers and working with the buildings. Clearly, in the future, we're going to have to get a little bit closer to that, and the idea really is to engage in areas where libraries cannot be maintained in the same way as they are now, to engage with local communities, see how they'd like to use those particular assets, not only for libraries, they want to keep them going as libraries, but also for other purposes, community purposes, and try and engage with them and innovate a way of making it possible for them to keep those assets going. School crossing patrols, another one that's been plastered across, I would say in quite a sensational manner actually. I don't think in the circumstances that we're in it's at all unreasonable for us to go to schools, to parents, to local authorities, town councils and parish councils, and say, okay, we're going to do part of this, we always have, but in the circumstances we're in, and so we can keep other frontline services going, what can you do to help? What volunteers can you bring into it? We will pay for the uniforms, we will pay for the insurance, we'll pay for the training, but can you come in and help us a little? Because after all, we don't have much money, and the more money we have to spend doing that, the less money we'll have to spend putting out our other frontline services. So I don't think that's at all an unreasonable request. I think it has to be gone into with an open mind on all parts. And I think less sensationalism would be very useful on those particular areas. Social enterprises, community planning, it's evolved in different ways across Dorset, and that in many ways is quite right. One size doesn't fit all. But there's some really good examples there in certain areas, and I think we need to continue to work on that to help local organisations, local communities own what's going forward. I think they want to be quite honest. So that's an area we can move forward. I've had Olympics at the bottom, because Olympics is very much in my mind at the moment. There is a lot of voluntary work goes into Olympics. Okay, you might say, well, you get to the Olympics, you get the Paralympics, and then it's all over. We've been working on legacy, but I think volunteering also leaves its own legacy. And I think it's immensely important that we do what we can before, during the Olympics and afterwards to maintain the legacy of volunteering in that respect. So that is why that is there. Thank you very much indeed. Do we sit up here to answer the questions?